Yo, what's going on? I went on Twitter and I asked you guys to tweet me pictures of your favorite guitar players and I will rate them. I'm gonna rate them on a scale of 0, which is the worst, to 10, which is I bow down to you. So my criteria for rating these guys is some kind of blend between technicality, creativity, and the ability to be memorable, whether that means they have their own voice on the guitar and you immediately recognize a note from them, or they just have the tendency to write music that you immediately recognize, oh, I know who wrote that, or I know who's playing that. And I'm not even gonna mention the fact that, yeah, these are just my opinions. Oh wait, I just did. This video is just for fun, so let's have some fun. All right, in no particular order, I'm just gonna go at complete random here. Oh, don't even get me started on this guy. He goes on the internet and rates guitar players like he's any good at guitar. He teaches people, even though he probably isn't even that good at teaching or knows what he's talking about. I'm gonna give this guy a 1 out of 10. I would give him a 0, but he does have a really hot wife. John Frusciante of Red Hot Chili Peppers, really like this guy. I would give him 7 out of 10. He's not totally my style when it comes to the lead work. It's kind of limited there for me, so that's why he doesn't go up past a 7, but his melodic guitar playing and riff writing is very superior to my own. It's really hard to write memorable guitar melodies and riffs like he does, plus he's a funky mother. Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit. All right, I'm not a huge fan of Limp Bizkit, but Rollin' was one of my guilty pleasures when Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water. I still remember that album name. When that came out, Wes Borland obviously was responsible for that riffage. I thought it was a really smooth, raw guitar sound. Looks like he's playing a PRS there. I don't really remember many riffs though, other than that one that I mentioned, so I'm gonna go with 5 out of 10. Charlie Parra del Riego. Again, somebody that I'm not very familiar with. Let's analyze this picture though. Looks like he is typing on a keyboard, only that's a guitar. Based on that guitar, he definitely looks like a shredder. I can see he's very wise there, using the cable through the guitar strap method so he doesn't step on it and cut his guitar solo short. And looks like he's got some tattoos all across the arm, curly long Marty Friedman style hair. I don't know how memorable that lick is that he's playing though, so I'm gonna go with 6 out of 10. This particular picture is pretty funny. Steve Vai, 10 out of 10. And a lot of that rating is based on the innovation that he brought to the guitar. While some people may believe that all he does is play 1,000,000 notes per second and has no feel, in reality, Steve Vai is truly a master. What he's done for me as a musician is inspire me to play things that aren't normal and be really aggressive and have fun on the guitar and play things that don't necessarily make sense and try and make them make sense in a musical context. So I think that is the beauty of his innovation on the axe, and of course his technical ability is off the charts. He's not just a guitar virtuoso, he has arranged orchestras. I mean, he played with Frank Zappa, so you know the technical side and the musical side is all in there, the whole package, and he's still coming out with new awesome music to this day. Ah yes, my alter ego Blaze. All I know about Blaze is he has very strong opinions, and he certainly has a strong opinion about Steve Vai. But he's really kind of a know-it-all, and he's pretty annoying, and he's not that good. 2 out of 10. Lee Anderton. Ah yes, I have seen Lee's videos here on the YouTube. I think his playing is very kind of traditional and nice. He's not the flashiest guitar player, but there's something to be said for people who have been playing the guitar for a long time. But Lee's guitar playing is kind of mature sounding, you know? From what playing I've seen him do, it seems like he is in control. He's not trying to do too much or go outside his skill set, which is very admirable. It's hard as guitar players to kind of rein it in. He likes the blues. I'm a blues guy at heart. I'm gonna give Lee 7 out of 10. Randy Rhoads. Oh man, where to start with him? I think the first Randy Rhoads moment for me, not the first time I heard him, but the first moment where I was like, holy cow, this guy's on another level, is when I heard the solo to Mr. Crowley. And there's a pinch harmonic that he hits when he's doing that super fast 6-tuplet pull-off thing towards the end of the solo where it just sounds like he goes through the sound barrier, and it's still musical. Like, he's shredding, but it's still musical. He has a real bluesy influence to his metal guitar playing, which is really my own style, or what I like to tap into every now and then when I'm trying to find my own voice on guitar. So he is definitely one of my top 5 guitar players' inspirations. 10 out of 10, Randy Rhoads. Matt Bellamy from Muse. Yes, I have gotten a lot of recommendations to do like a Habits of Matt Bellamy, or Matthew Bellamy, whatever you call him. I like Muse. I think they're a really great band. I don't necessarily grab onto their guitar stuff as much. I know they have great riffs, and I actually put one of them, Citizen Erased, in one of my list videos that I do. I think he plays, I don't know if he's playing it there, but I thought he plays a 7-string some of the time, and he does some cool kind of whammy bar. Again, another guy who really is dialed in as far as his skill set. He doesn't try to go too far outside the box from his abilities, but he also has this really cool like neoclassical influence, and you blend that with like giant arena rock. It makes a really cool combination, and his guitar style is unique in that way. So I'm going to give Matt Bellamy 8 out of 10. Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains. I would say his musicianship is very suited to the style of music he makes. He's more of a songwriting type guy, although obviously he plays blistering stuff. He's just not the kind of guitar player who I first cite as like the grunge dude. I would definitely put like Mike McCready or even Kurt Cobain a little bit higher on that echelon, just because of, again, I don't really recall as many memorable riffs coming out of him. He kind of reminds me of like the session guitar player, where he's a really great guitar player, but he just kind of blends in. But he does have some great guitar solos, so I'm going to give Jerry Cantrell 6 out of 10. Synyster Gates of Avenged Sevenfold. I used to work in Circuit City. That was my first job. I was 15, and I was a car radio salesman. And that song Bat Country by Avenged Sevenfold had just come out, and it was always playing on the radio because we had like the rock station on in our department. And so that song is like burned into my head, and I really like it still. I just listened to it the other day. I heard it on the radio, and I think Synyster Gates is one of those guitar players who is very, very good at writing memorable melodies, and he's really kind of one of the leading dudes keeping the guitar alive these days, being in a big arena band but still ripping solos. He seems like somebody who's really knowledgeable on the music theory side of stuff and is well versed in other genres from other videos that I've seen of him. Plus, he's got a really cool name. I'm gonna go with 8 out of 10 for Synyster Gates. David Gilmour, yes, the melody master, as I would call him. There's just only a few people in the world who can really make the guitar weep. David Gilmour is one of them. Certainly has his own voice on the guitar. Isn't quite my style as far as the lead stuff goes. Like I mentioned, the bends are great, but some of the other stuff that's sprinkled in, I would have gone in a different direction. Look at me talking like I'm David Gilmour, I know what to do. Again, this is just for fun. Great guitar player, really can't do any wrong. Seems to be a very nice human being from the interviews that I've seen of him. I'm gonna give David Gilmour a solid 8 out of 10. Jorn-Viggo Lofstad of Pagan's Mind. I don't think I've ever heard of him, but I'm gonna just kind of analyze him based on what I see here. Looks like he's playing a 5150, so maybe he's got some Eddie Van Halen influence. It looks like a Music Man there in his hands. He's rocking the rolled up sleeves look, I like that. He seems like a solid player, and if the folks from HOSA are recommending him, he's probably pretty good. 7 out of 10. Lil Wayne. I wouldn't exactly classify him as a guitar player, so 0 out of 10. Pliny. I'm actually going to see Pliny next week in Atlanta with Nick Johnston, so hopefully I get some cool footage for you guys. I've heard one album from him, the most recent one. The thing that sticks out to me more than his technicality on the guitar is the arrangements of his compositions. They're really, really interesting, and it's hard to make instrumental music interesting. I mean, even my wife likes it, so that's saying something. I think Pliny's doing really cool stuff. My one concern, though, is that he's got a guitar without a headstock. What's up with that? Never been a fan of that. Other than that, great guitar player. 8 out of 10. Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine, Audio Slave, Night Watchman, and other projects, I'm sure. He's definitely one of my favorite guitar players of all time. He is gonna get a 50 out of 10 on the innovation scale just because of the different types of things that he's done with guitar effects. His guitar playing, I think, is slightly limited in the harmonic side of things. He kind of has a tunnel vision for riff writing, which is all his own tunnel. Nobody's with him in that tunnel. But I think what's more about Tom Morello is he really wears his emotion on his sleeve and it comes right into the guitar when he's playing. And I think one of the hardest things to do is to make what's in your head come out of the strings or out of the amplifier, and Tom definitely does that. And again, the innovation with the guitar effects and making his guitar do things that nobody has ever done before. I think it's really unique that maybe you won't recognize if Tom Morello is playing a riff, but you definitely will recognize a Tom Morello guitar solo. So I'm gonna give Tom Morello 9 out of 10. Slight wardrobe change. I had to go eat some dinner, but now I'm back to continue ranking. And it looks like we have Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page maxes out all my criteria. Inimitable tone, iconic, legendary rock star status, and musicality. Now, some might say his technique is a little sloppy, but I defy you to try and play like Jimmy Page. I actually agree. His playing is kind of sloppy, but it's almost sloppy on purpose. It's like, how is he playing that? It seems like he shouldn't be able to be playing that, but everything is perfectly in time and in tune. Did you know Jimmy Page was actually a session musician before Led Zeppelin? You don't become a session musician by being a sloppy guitar player, trust me on that. Jimmy Page, 10 out of 10. Tosin Abasi, yes, the 8-string maestro. He is definitely a pioneer in today's guitar world, and he seems like a really humble guy. I've seen some videos with him, and seems like a really cool dude that I'd like to hang out with. His melodic playing is very polished, very straightforward and meticulous. And not a lot of people get invited to jam with Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, so I'm gonna give Tosin 9 out of 10. Alex Lifeson, yes, one of the original kind of effects wizards as a guitar player from Rush. He's another one of those guys where it's almost impossible to imitate his mannerisms on the guitar, which allows for him to have his unique voice of his own, but also a sense of musicality that resonates with listeners. His style is not exactly my favorite regarding his note selection and things like that, but I had the privilege to play one of his PRS signature guitars. It's an acoustic guitar and it plays awesome. Anybody who has a guitar like that is probably a pretty great player. I'm gonna give Alex Lifeson 8 out of 10. Zakk Wylde, yes, the pinch harmonic master himself. I got to meet Zakk Wylde one time. Seemed like a cool dude. He definitely seems like the quintessential guitar hero. Long flowing hair, ridiculous sounding guitars. The thing I like about Zakk's playing is, although it seems limited regarding his lead stuff, you know, it seems a lot of pentatonic driven stuff, he has the strongest index finger, I think, of any guitar player. When he hits that, wah! His vibrato is creamy and his aggressive guitar playing is something that when you hear it, you're just like, I think my favorite iteration of Zakk Wylde is him playing in Ozzy more than Black Label Society, but really they're both great. He's also a businessman starting his own guitar company. I think that's really cool. I'm gonna give Zakk Wylde 8 out of 10. Yes, I'd recognize that mean mug anywhere. That's Stevie Ray Vaughan. He is the best rhythm guitar player I have ever heard. Of course, his leads are awesome and instantly recognizable, but really what a lot of people miss in his guitar playing is the rhythmic aspect of it. Just listen to Rude Mood and you'll understand why Stevie Ray Vaughan is one of my favorite guitar players ever. I'm gonna give Stevie Ray Vaughan 10 out of 10. Slash. Yes, Slash is definitely on the guitar hero spectrum. He may be the quintessential guitar hero. I really enjoy his guitar playing from a classic rock perspective. I've never got to see Slash play live, but I've seen plenty of live video of him. Seems like he has his ups and downs depending on which performance you watch. But overall, his studio stuff, I think that's the environment where he really thrives. Obviously, creating some of the most recognizable licks of all time gives you a plus in the old guitar playing category, but his guitar playing isn't necessarily my favorite go-to kind of tonality. It's great though. I'm gonna give Slash 7 out of 10. Myles Kennedy, the frontman for Alter Bridge, amazing singer, underrated guitar player apparently. I've never seen him play live. I wouldn't really be able to pick out his guitar parts versus Tremonti's on the album, so maybe you guys can comment and let me know some of his key performances. The thing about people like Myles Kennedy, I find, is that their musicianship is so high in one area that it transfers over to multiple other areas. So I know really great vocalists who are also great guitar players and piano players, or great bass players who are also great drummers. So I think that is probably the case with him. He certainly can probably hold it down since he is the frontman of one of the biggest rock bands in the world. I'm gonna give Myles Kennedy 6 out of 10. Prince. Did you know Prince was actually a multi-instrumentalist? He played dozens of instruments very proficiently, so I think guitar, obviously being one of the primary instruments in a rock band context, he probably had a focus on that, but I think he was actually a better drummer and bass player than he was a guitar player. He has certain songs where it's like, yes, this is an awesome moment in guitar history. In his performance of All Along the Watchtower in the Super Bowl halftime show, I don't remember which year it was, that was truly an epic moment. Another guy who is just very capable, doesn't get too far out of his comfort zone, but also is a great stage performer. I'm gonna give Prince 7 out of 10. Paul Gilbert, 10 out of 10. Musicianship, check. Technicality, check, check. Overall voice on the instrument and innovation, check, check, check. This dude is seriously one of my biggest influences, and he is criminally underrated as a melodic guitar player. Like, people think of Paul Gilbert and they think, oh, shred master. It's like, yeah, the dude can shred, but he also can play literally any song. He's like a jukebox. The fact that he pays homage to all of his influences and can literally recall any song in the world, it seems like, that paired with his attitude that comes through the guitar, that seals the deal for me. 10 out of 10, Paul Gilbert. Yes, John Mayer playing his S-Type PRS prototype. Did you know about that? Looks like me and John are going to be hanging out because we're PRS buddies. No, I wish. But I am actually going to see John Mayer perform in Charlotte, North Carolina tonight. So by the time you watch this, I'll have already seen it and maybe posted a video about it. Anyway, about his guitar playing, another criminally underrated guitar player, I think, just because of his pop guitar status. Yeah, he's a great blues player, but I think, again, going back to the Stevie Ray Vaughan type thing, he's a really underrated rhythm guitar player. His lead stuff is obviously very satisfying. You don't get a gig in a band like the Grateful Dead by being a slouch, so he's certainly a capable lead guitar player, but again, it comes back to the rhythm. This is the most difficult side of guitar to master. I think anyone can really rip, but to play rhythmically and sing like he does, that is very difficult to do, and to do consistently. I'm gonna give John Mayer 8 out of 10. Angus Young, yes. He was one of the first influences. I think I probably played over Back in Black when I was 14 or 15 years old. I probably played to that song 8 billion times. I wouldn't say his guitar voice is necessarily as defined as some of the other players in this video. However, you can definitely feel that aggression in the context of an album. I think he is one of the most cohesive guitar players. I also think his brother Malcolm Young really supports what he does on those AC/DC albums. But it isn't lost on me that Angus is certainly one of the premier voices in the classic rock realm. Plus, his vibrato, real tasty. I'm gonna give Angus 7 out of 10. Mark Knopfler. Knopfler, I usually call him Knopfler. How do you say it? Anyways, I really only know Sultans of Swing. I never really got into Mark Knopfler. I know he's a fingerstyle guitar player, which is really cool and unique. Definitely relate to the way he plays guitar and the articulations that he does. I don't know if his voice, again, coming back to the instantly recognizable sound, I don't know, other than that Sultans of Swing tune, if I would recognize him on a track, but maybe you would. Again, all subjective here. I'm gonna give Mark Knopfler 6 out of 10. Mark Holcomb, yes, I love Periphery's riffage. I am not a huge fan of like heavy metal with screaming vocals, although Periphery is one where I really get into it. I don't know, I think it could be because of the guitar stuff that's so interesting to me. So I have Mark Holcomb to thank for that, along with the other guys in Periphery, like the gent and metalcore stuff. I think it's really easy to get trapped into a box of certain styles of guitar playing and certain ways to deliver your melodies and things like that. I think it's a really manufactured sound sometimes, but I know to be able to play that stuff consistently and more importantly, write music like that, you have to be extremely talented. So I'm gonna give Mark Holcomb 7 out of 10. Mark Tremonti. I really like Mark Tremonti's guitar playing. I have listened to both Alter Bridge and his solo album stuff, and his guitar playing is just that. It serves the song. Sometimes it's a little gratuitous in his solo stuff, but that's what solo stuff is for, right? I think he's like the guitar player's guitar player, you know, where everything he plays is just like, yeah, that is satisfying. So on that front, he gets a upvote from me. On the kind of creative front, I think he's a little straight ahead in what he does, which is totally fine with me because I love what he does. I'm gonna give Mark Tremonti 7 out of 10. Lord Phobos from TWRP Band. The guy looks like a cross between Daft Punk and a Power Ranger. Looks like he's got a Gibson Explorer there. I've never heard this guy play, so I'm going totally on image here. Seems like he's got some spandex going on there. Some people throwing up the horns, so I guess he's rocking. Some nice blue smoke behind him. I think he'd be okay if there was like a gas bomb thrown in that place because he's got a breathing mask of some sort. I don't know what it is, but that riff that he's playing right there, it looks kind of lame. I'm gonna give this guy 4 out of 10. Dimebag Darrell, the reddest goatee you've ever seen. I love Dimebag Darrell. He wasn't really a huge influence on me. I never got into Pantera as much as some other people may have, but I certainly respect what he did for the guitar, especially on the aggressive nature of his whammy action. I think it's also funny where anyone in the guitar community is like, oh, you want to sound like Dimebag Darrell? Scoop the mids. I wonder if people even really know what that means sometimes, but I think as far as his guitar playing goes and his riff writing, he is a solid master of his craft. I think he had also a lot of technical understanding that maybe people wouldn't realize. You know, I think him and Zakk Wylde are in the kind of the same camp, but I think Zakk Wylde is a little bit more blues oriented, where Dimebag has kind of a more fusion-y feel to some of his stuff. Obviously he's a metal player, but he had a lot of note choices that were really interesting to me as somebody who doesn't really thrive in a metal context. I'm more of a jazz, blues, rock guy. So for that, I give Dimebag 8 out of 10. Buckethead. Seems like a dude who has a lot going on in the bucket. His compositions are vast and span a lot of different genres, and I really actually enjoy his ballad stuff more than the rock stuff. Obviously, he has some cool riffs that rock really hard, but his ballads that really highlight his emotional kind of guitar playing are really interesting to me, and they give me some cool inspirations from time to time. His stage moniker is really neat. I don't think I would necessarily recognize his guitar playing without seeing him play it, but I do think his mastery of the instrument is well documented across his catalog. I'm gonna give Buckethead 7 out of 10. Eric Johnson, 10 out of 10. This dude can play anything and probably plays the most unique sounding chordal stuff on the guitar that I've ever heard. It is truly inspiring to listen to him play, and you immediately know when Eric Johnson hits a note, or a chord for that matter. It's like, how many guitar players can you hear them play a chord and you're like, oh, that's an Eric Johnson chord? That paired with having literally maybe the #1 guitar track of all time in Cliffs of Dover, a song that still doesn't get old no matter how many times I hear it. He's a real humble guy, and the one kind of downside for me is that I wish he wouldn't sing. Yeah. Anyways, that has nothing to do with guitar playing. 10 out of 10, Eric. Annie Clark. She looks familiar. Is she the Saint? I think she's St. Vincent, right? I actually have seen them live. I went to a Pitchfork Music Festival a few years ago. I wouldn't say she's the most proficient guitar player, but she certainly has developed a giant following. I think the way she uses the guitar in some of her music is interesting, especially for that indie thing where it's kind of more important to make noise than real music. Oh God. Okay, that came out wrong. You know, where it's not as important to be a shredder. It's actually more important to be dirty and grungy, which is awesome. I love that. I think she thrives as a band leader the most. I think that her as a guitar player, I'm gonna give her 4 out of 10. Erin Marshall from Intervals. I really like his guitar playing. He's one of the dudes, kind of like Pliny, where they have this obsession with the minor second. I don't know if you've noticed that in some of the newer guitar players where they rip through all these crazy runs and then they hit that minor second interval with 2 strings ringing out, usually on the B and E strings. So from the technical side, he gets a thumbs up. From the musical side, definitely a thumbs up. I haven't heard enough from him to really recognize him immediately, but with all that said, I really love his style. Really resonates with me personally. 8 out of 10 for Erin. Brad Delson from Linkin Park. I know there's a lot of really cool guitar stuff in certain Linkin Park songs. A lot of it seems kind of repetitive, but the riffs that do happen are like crushing, awesome riffs. And again, it comes back to the whole serving the song thing. He is certainly a capable guitar player. You wouldn't be in one of the biggest bands in the history of the world if you weren't really good at your instrument. He's just a different kind of guitar player than I would ever be. And that's why it's fun doing this, because honestly, I'd probably never even think of Brad Delson unless I did the video like this. So with all that said, I wouldn't recognize his tone necessarily. I think he serves the song well, and he's a proficient guitar player in his own right. I'm gonna give Brad Delson 6 out of 10. Brian May from Queen. Certainly an awesome guitar player. The guitar tone is what really stands out for me regarding Brian May. He absolutely is a technically proficient guitar player. His songwriting chops as well as his finger tone, that instantly recognizable sound, those two go hand in hand. For me, he's definitely not one of my primary influences, but I can sing one of his guitar solos note for note, and that's saying something. I'm gonna give Brian May 8 out of 10. Paul Stanley from Kiss. Never a big Kiss guy. I wasn't into that kind of music. However, I understand their influence in the rock world. I wonder what they would have been had they not worn makeup. Like, would Kiss have been what they are today if they had been a jazz band and worn that makeup? Or was it just the perfect combination of crazy arena rock and black and white painted faces? I honestly couldn't name any recognizable Kiss guitar stuff other than, you know, what's on the radio, but even that is not really in my wheelhouse. So fortunately, Paul Stanley, I'm gonna have to give you 4 out of 10. Nuno Bettancourt of Extreme. He is definitely an awesome guitar player. He probably has one of the most unique guitar approaches of that era of music, that 80s kind of shred stuff. I believe Extreme only made it to where they made it because of Nuno's riffs. I think it was a really fine line to walk between hair metal shred and awesome rock guitar playing, and I think he blended that gap. His like super oversaturated sound that was full of pinch harmonics and crazy alternate picking, legato stuff. I think he's a really underrated, almost virtuoso level guitar player. Again, I would probably recognize most of his guitar playing without even seeing him play. He certainly wrote all those amazing riffs. I'm gonna give Nuno 8 out of 10. Immediately recognizable tone, amazing songwriter and riff writer, technical ability off the charts, innovator, pioneer, and overall cool dude. What more do I have to say? Eddie Van Halen, 10 out of 10. Joe Pass, great jazz guitar player. I learned a lot of his music when I was at Berklee College of Music. As a result, I definitely credit most of my jazz vocabulary to his style of jazz guitar playing. It's definitely not my preferred guitar style. However, I think it's really important to be a versatile musician and to study those who thrive in areas that you don't really understand. I learned to apply a lot of the music theory that I've learned throughout my life using his guitar approaches in the jazz context, and then transfer that to other genres to kind of find my own voice on the guitar, which I'm still searching for. I wouldn't recognize his sound. However, again, I'm not a jazz cat. Maybe other people would. I honestly have greater jazz influences, but his impact on the jazz guitar community, I think, is unparalleled. So just for that alone, I'm gonna give him 8 out of 10. John Petrucci, 10 out of 10. I'd give him an 11 out of 10 if I could. Wait, I can't, it's my list. 11 out of 10. Musicality, technical ability, immediately recognizable voice, innovator, humble dude, just the quintessential, yeah! You know those guitar players who are shredders, but then when they play something that's like right up your alley, like a blues lick, it's just like, oh, that's so sick. I love the signature Petrucci, super fast alternate picking stuff and his sweeping stuff. But when he blends in that soulful stuff, it's just like, that is it. I feel like I have a little bit of a kindred spirit too, because he went to Berkeley, I went to Berkeley. I know that doesn't mean anything, but it's just cool to have been in the same place as one of my favorite guitar players ever. Also, he seems like a really nice guy. Again, something that doesn't really apply to this rating, but with all that considered, 11 out of 10. Jim Root. Honestly, can't say I know one Jim Root song. I know he has a signature Telecaster, so he's definitely a great guitar player. I just cannot picture any Jim Root song. Oh, he's the guitar player for Slipknot. Okay, I just watched a little bit of his stuff. Not really my style. Seems a little bland. He certainly probably has chops. That's not debatable. But nothing really stuck out for me. I listened for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna give Jim Root 4 out of 10. Jonny Greenwood of Radiohead. Radiohead's one of my favorite bands. I also really enjoy Johnny's string arrangement. He's done film scoring for movies like There Will Be Blood, and he's a really great innovator on the guitar. I wouldn't call him a proficient guitar player by any means. I think he is another guy who understands his ability level and also is kind of like a mad scientist with the effects and everything like that. He has created some of the coolest arrangements. I really think his forte is in songwriting. So as a guitar player, he gets kind of a notch down on the technical side, but that's made up for on the creative side. His voice on guitar is sometimes recognizable, sometimes he blends back. Seems like a really just cool guitar player. So for this list, I'm gonna give Jonny Greenwood 6 out of 10. James Hetfield, Metallica frontman, ultimate down picker. I think just for the down picking alone, I think he gets 2 bumps up from me on the technical side. I really put a lot of value in rhythm guitar playing. I think it is such an overlooked part of a lot of guitar players' arsenals of skills, and so anytime we're talking rhythm guitar playing, that is something that interests me, and I always envy dudes, especially the songs that James plays where he's playing and singing at the same time. That takes a lot of training. Master riff writer, master performer, not necessarily a technical guy on the lead stuff, but that's made up for on the rhythm side of things. Plus, Metallica is one of my favorite bands of all time. James Hetfield, 8 out of 10. Okay, Carrie Brownstein from Sleater-Kinney. I'm doing this one for variety, just like the tweet says. I literally have no idea who this person is. Looks like this could be some kind of open mic night. I don't know who I'm evaluating here, which girl. I'm gonna go with the girl with the SG over there. Seems to be ripping some kind of little lead lick there. Might be something tasty going on. I've never been a fan of SG guitars. It always felt like the neck was way too long because of the way the cutaway happened. Just felt like I was playing this giant plank of wood instead of a guitar. Just to be completely fair, in case this person is the woman Guthrie Govan of the world, 5 out of 10. Speak of the devil, Guthrie Govan. I think if you've never heard Guthrie, your jaw would kind of drop down to the ground when you did hear him. So there's something to be said for that. A master of all genres, it seems, and a really excellent educator. If you've ever seen any of his YouTube videos where he teaches private classes and does a one-on-one type thing, he is a really articulate individual, really smart, and again, that kind of transfers to his guitar playing, but not in a mathematical way. He really has a lot of feel. His album Erotic Cakes is still probably one of my top 3 instrumental guitar albums of all time. So Guthrie Govan, 10 out of 10. Tony Iommi, the father of metal, apparently this person says, and I would tend to agree. Still remember playing Paranoid and War Pigs in my room when I was like 13 or 14 years old. I learned on the metal of Tony Iommi, and his type of metal that he founded was just pure. It really felt pure. His guitar playing was just heavy. He truly was just a riff lord. And his lead guitar stuff, in case you didn't know, some of his fingers, I don't know what happened to them. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but they were cut off and he put like brass or metal fingertips onto his fingers, and that's pretty badass. His lead guitar playing on the technical side of things was pretty high for the time that he came up in the guitar world, so I kind of evaluate it based on where these people were and what influences they had to work with. With all that said, I'm going to give Tony Iommi 8 out of 10. Rodrigo y Gabriela. I don't really know much about these two other than they're a great tandem, of course. I've heard some of their music, but again, it's not something that I go out and listen to. I know in this kind of flamenco context, the first thing that comes to mind as far as guitar duos is Aldi Meola and Paco de Lucia. Those two are really kind of own that genre as far as I'm concerned. But the fact that Rodrigo y Gabriela are kind of in there with them, in my mind, I think is a testament to what they do, or they're just really good at marketing. Who knows? I have a lot of respect for people who can play styles of guitar that I cannot, and flamenco is certainly one of them. I'm working on it though. I have a feeling a lot of their music is very strong on the songwriting side of things, or else they wouldn't be so popular, because obviously there's a lot of instrumental musicians out there who are very technically proficient but aren't as well known. So as a tandem, I'm gonna give Rodrigo y Gabriela 7 out of 10. All right guys, that is gonna do it. 50 guitar players rated. Again, I hope I didn't offend anyone or hurt anyone's feelings. This was just for fun. And let me know if you like this video or if I should never do anything like this again. I'm just trying something new. There were a lot more than 50 guitar players, so I could do a part 2. If you want me to, let me know in the comments. Maybe leave a thumbs up. If this video gets 1,000 thumbs up, maybe I'll do a part 2. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, but until then, keep shredding.